I found out Lucas was cheating because another woman answered his door wearing my favorite shade of lipstick. I had let myself into his apartment with the spare key he used to call a symbol of trust. I was carrying a garment bag with his tuxedo for his family's founder's dinner, a small box of truffles he liked, and a tiramisu I had made because his mother preferred mine to the catered desserts, and I had always been stupidly eager to be useful. The woman standing in front of me wore one of his white shirts unbuttoned to the thigh. Her hair was tangled, one heel dangling from her fingers. She took one look at me, took in the garment bag and the dessert, and said with horrible casual pity, "Oh, you're the girlfriend." Behind her, Lucas appeared from the hallway, barefoot and half-dressed, still fastening his watch as if he thought he might yet make the evening respectable by being on time. "Nina," he said, too sharply, like I had interrupted him instead of the other way around. The moment held there, obscene and ordinary at once, the champagne bottle on the counter, 2 wine glasses. I had always imagined betrayal as something loud. Shouting, shattered glass, dramatic certainty. But when it finally came, I felt nothing at first. Not anger, not grief. Only a strange lightness, as if my body had decided to protect me by stepping half an inch away from itself. Lucas reached for the explanation. Men like him always kept polished. "This isn't what it looks like." The woman gave him a look that said even she found that insulting. I set the dessert box down very carefully because my hands had started to shake. "Then tell me what it looks like." He dragged a hand through his hair. "We were drunk." "You knew I was coming." "It was a mistake." The woman shifted her weight. "I should go." I looked at her, because suddenly I wanted one honest thing in that room. "Did he tell you he had a girlfriend?" She hesitated, then said, "He said there was someone who refused to understand the relationship was already over." Lucas muttered, "For God's sake!" I nodded once. "Thank you." Before continuing with the story, you can check out my Patreon page in the description for much hotter, completely uncensored GL stories. Warning, the videos are really steamy. That embarrassed her more than if I had screamed. She slipped past me toward the elevator, heels in one hand, shirt still hanging from her shoulders like a trophy borrowed from a weak man. When the door shut behind her, Lucas exhaled hard and turned back to me like we could still arrange the narrative into something survivable. "Nina, listen. Things have been bad between us for a while." "How?" He blinked, irritated already that I was making him specify his own lie. "You've been distant, tired. We barely talk anymore." I almost laughed. I had been tired because I was helping him polish the presentation for the promotion he wanted. We barely talked because he was always on his phone. I had been distant because every time I asked if anything was wrong, he kissed my forehead and said I overthought everything. "You cheated on me." It didn't mean anything. That was the moment anger arrived, not because he had done it, because he thought meaninglessness made it gentler. I stared at him and finally saw what I should have seen months ago. Handsome face, careful hair, nice watch, expensive apartment, and absolutely no muscle anywhere inside him for shame. "Do you know what the ugliest part of this is?" I asked. He crossed his arms, defensive already. I said I was sorry. "No." I picked up the spare key from my bag and set it on the counter beside the truffles. "You explained. Those aren't the same thing." I left the tiramisu behind. It felt right that he should have to look at it and know exactly how much sweetness I had wasted on him. Outside, it was raining hard enough to blur the city into silver. I stood under the awning of his building in my pale blue dress and thin coat and tried to remember how to breathe. Cars hissed over wet asphalt. Streetlights smeared into halos. A doorman asked if I needed an umbrella, and I shook my head because speaking felt impossible. I was not angry enough yet for anger to be useful. Anger required strength. I only felt empty. I got in my car and drove without thinking. Past the florist his mother liked, past the hotel where his family hosted winter galas, past the dark tower where the Vale name sat in gold lettering above polished stone, pretending to mean legacy instead of appetite. By the time I realized where I was going, I was already turning into the private drive for Blackwater. Blackwater was Vivienne Vale's luxury bar, the one everyone in the city knew and pretended not to discuss directly. Lucas's sister, the dangerous one. Vivienne was older than him by 8 years and had spent most of her adult life becoming the sort of woman men lowered their voices around. She ran the family's hotels, handled their legal disasters, and made donors twice her age feel like badly dressed interns if they wasted her time. She wore black coats that made her look like a verdict, red lipstick sharp enough to count as a threat, and a perfume that always lingered like a dark promise after she crossed a room. I had met her 2 years earlier at a family dinner, and from that night on, I had never been entirely comfortable around her. Not because she was cruel to me, because every time she looked at me, I felt too seen. The valet recognized my car and hurried over with an umbrella. Then he saw my face and stopped. "Miss Ellis?" I should have told him I was leaving. Instead, I sat there with rain tapping the windshield and my pulse stumbling around my ribs like it wanted out. The front doors opened. Vivienne stepped into the rain in a black coat over a charcoal suit, one hand taking the umbrella from the guard beside her without even glancing at him. Her eyes found me through the windshield immediately. Then she came to my car. I lowered the window an inch. "I'm fine." Her gaze moved over the ruined mascara, the damp hair, the white-knuckled grip I still had on the steering wheel. "No," she said. "You are not." Something inside me broke on the sound of it. "Open the door, Nina." It should not have been comforting to be ordered around by a woman whose reputation made grown men sweat. It was, anyway. I got out. She held the umbrella over both of us, though it meant rain hit the shoulder of her coat. Up close, she smelled like amber and cold air, and her face was all hard composure except for the fury banked low behind her eyes. "Did he touch you after?" she asked. I blinked. "What?" "After you found out. Did he put his hands on you?" "No." That answer did nothing to soften her expression. "I don't want a scene," I whispered. She glanced toward the entrance where the staff had become professionally invisible. "Then don't make one. Come inside." "I can't." "You can." Her certainty left me with no useful argument. So I followed her. She took me through a private corridor to an elevator that opened into her office. Dark wood, low lamps, city lights, a decanter of whiskey, no personal photographs anywhere. She took my wet coat from my shoulders, handed me water, and said, "Tell me whether I need to destroy my brother tonight or later." Despite everything, a breath of laughter escaped me. "You can't say things like that." "I can," she said. "The question is whether I should." I sat because my legs had finally admitted they were unreliable. "He cheated on me." She went very still. "I know." I looked up. "You know?" "I knew something was wrong. I didn't know if today would be the day you saw it for yourself." Shock cut cleanly through my numbness. "You should have told me." Her eyes met mine. "I thought about it." "Then why didn't you?" "Because if I told you too early, he would have lied, cried, and turned the entire thing into a test of your loyalty instead of his character. He has spent his whole life being rescued from consequences by women who wanted peace more than truth." Her voice stayed low and even. "I refuse to become one more tool he used to manage you." I hated how much sense that made. I hated more that she understood him so perfectly. "This is humiliating," I said. "Yes." No false comfort. No, of course not. Just honesty. It hurt and steadied me at once. She leaned one hip against the desk, arms crossed. "He is a coward, and you have been too loyal to notice how much of himself he built out of your patience." I looked down at the glass in my hands. Did everyone know I was the patient girlfriend? Not everyone, she said after a beat. But I did. The silence that followed changed texture. You noticed me, I said. Her expression sharpened, as if the question itself offended her. Of course I noticed you. I swallowed. She moved closer then, crouching in front of me with all the contained elegance of a predator who had decided not to startle something wounded. Up close, her eyes were darker than I ever remembered, almost black in that light. I stayed away from you on purpose, she said. Why? Because you were with him. The city outside the windows seemed to go quieter. She took one measured breath. Every time he interrupted you at dinner, every time he forgot what you liked, every time he held your back like you were a prop he had grown used to, I noticed. And because you were his, I said nothing. My pulse stumbled. I had spent 2 years inside the Vale family orbit feeling vaguely ornamental. Lucas's sweet, stable girlfriend. Easy to bring to dinners. Easy to count on. No one had ever said they had watched my unhappiness gather in such precise, furious detail. That's not fair, I whispered. No, she said. It isn't. Then she held out her hand. You are not staying alone tonight. I'll go home. No, I need my own things. I'll send someone for them. The certainty in her tone should have sent me running. Instead, it made something shaky in my chest, quiet down for the first time since I had opened Lucas's door. She saw it happen. I knew she did. Nina, she said, softer now. You came here in the rain after my brother betrayed you. Whether you meant to or not, you put yourself in my hands for tonight. I am going to take that seriously. I should have been frightened by how much I wanted to let her. She took me upstairs to her apartment. Her home was all pale stone, deep velvet, amber lamps, books everywhere, and a city of lights beyond the windows. She gave me a black shirt and soft pants to change into, then set soup and a blanket in front of me. You ordered soup? I asked. Yes. For me? Who else is here? I laughed, small but real. There, she said quietly. That's better. Later, when the room had grown softer and the rain steadier, I said the question that had been scraping at me all evening. Why did I stay with him? Vivienne did not answer right away. She rarely answered anything before deciding the exact shape of truth she was willing to release. Because being chosen late still feels like being chosen when you've spent a long time making yourself easy to keep, she said at last. The accuracy of it left me breathless. I stared down at the blanket over my knees. He always made me feel like I was the good one, the calm one, the person he could come back to after everything else. I thought that meant I mattered. No, she said. The word was immediate, almost fierce. It meant he trusted you to survive neglect. My eyes burned. I looked away. She crossed the room and sat in the armchair opposite me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, far enough that she wasn't crowding my grief. Do you want the cruel version or the gentle one? Cruel. He treated your love like furniture. I closed my eyes. I hated how much that felt like being understood. By the time midnight turned into 1 in the morning, we had moved from speaking around the wound to speaking through it. She told me she had once made Lucas cry in Barcelona because he got lost and called her instead of using a map. I told her his mother still corrected how I arranged flowers because apparently hydrangeas expressed weakness if set too close to roses. She actually laughed at that, low and surprised, and the sound went through me like a secret. Then thunder hit hard enough to rattle the glass. I flinched. Her eyes lifted immediately. Do storms bother you? Not usually. I swallowed. I just don't want to sleep alone tonight. The words came out before I could stop them. Something changed in her face. Not enough for anyone else to catch. More than enough for me. Be careful, she said quietly. You should not ask me for things unless you mean it. Heat rushed up my neck. I didn't mean it like that. I know what you meant. She stood and held out her hand again. Come. I followed her to the bedroom. The sheets were dark gray. The windows ran nearly floor to ceiling. She pulled back one side of the covers and said, "You can sleep here. I'll take the chair." No. The objection came out faster than I expected. "That's your bed." "And you need rest?" "So do you." Her mouth curved faintly. "You are very determined for someone wearing my shirt." I looked down at the black fabric and nearly laughed from embarrassment. "I just don't want to be a burden." Her expression hardened instantly. "Do not say that in my home." I went still. "You are not a burden," she said, each word deliberate. "Especially not to me." There was something in the especially that made my stomach turn over. I got into the bed because there was no graceful way not to. She lay down on top of the blanket on the other side, still mostly dressed, close enough to hear, not close enough to touch. The room smelled like linen and amber and rain. "Why do you hate him this much?" I asked into the dark. "Because I know exactly what he is." "He's still your brother." "Yes," she said, "and that has been his greatest source of luck." There was no melodrama in it, only fact. When I woke in the morning, her arm was around my waist. For one disorienting second, I forgot everything and simply lay there, feeling the solid warmth of another body behind mine, the open hand resting lightly over my stomach, the strange peace of being held without demand. Then she woke too. I knew it because the hand at my waist tightened by half an inch. "I can move," she murmured, voice rough with sleep. I should have said yes immediately. Instead, I whispered, "Not yet." The silence after that felt almost holy. By breakfast, my phone had 23 missed calls from Lucas and a string of texts from his mother asking where I was because the family dinner was that evening, and surely Lucas had explained whatever misunderstanding occurred. Misunderstanding. I showed Vivienne the messages. She read them once and set the phone down with a face like polished ice. "I don't think I can go tonight," I said. "If you don't," she said, "they'll rewrite the story before dessert." I looked at her. "You sound like you've done this before." "I grew up in that house." The answer held whole decades inside it. I pressed my fingers to my forehead. "If I show up, everyone will know." "Yes." "I don't want to be pitied." Her gaze sharpened. "Then don't arrive alone." I looked up. "Come with me," she said, "as my guest." I stared at her. "Vivienne, you'll be protected." "That sounds dangerously close to revenge." Her expression didn't change. "Revenge would be taking something from him. I am offering you a shield." "And what does it look like to the room?" "That depends," she said, voice dropping, "on whether you care what cowards think." It was a terrible, seductive argument, so terrible that I almost smiled. "I don't want to be used to hurt him," I said. Something fierce moved behind her eyes. "Used?" She stepped closer. "Nina, if you stand beside me tonight, it will not be because you are a weapon. It will be because I refuse to let them turn you into collateral damage." "Then what am I?" The question escaped before I could stop it. She went very still. "A woman I have wanted to protect for longer than is wise." My pulse did something reckless. I should have said no. It would have been smarter. Instead, I imagined Lucas seeing me at her side, not begging for explanations, not crying in the hallway, not alone. The image felt almost sinful. I said yes. The rest of the day moved in quick, bright pieces. Vivienne had clothes sent up for me. Not random emergency clothes, but exactly the kind of blouse and coat I would have chosen for myself if I'd had money that careless. She knew my size. She admitted she knew it because she had paid attention. I tried not to react to that, and failed. By 5, a dress had been delivered for me. Dark green silk, elegant and impossible to dismiss, fitted through the waist and low at the shoulders. I held it against myself and turned to her. "You had this chosen for me?" It was adjusted. When I stepped out dressed for the dinner, both Mara and Vivienne went quiet. Vivienne crossed the room slowly. "Turn," she said. I did, because apparently I had become absurdly willing to take instructions from her. When I faced her again, she lifted one hand and paused near my temple. May I? I nodded. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear with such care that the touch felt more intimate than a kiss should have. Beautiful, she said. No one had ever made that word sound like a promise before. On the drive to the Vale estate, Vivienne noticed my clenched hands, turned one palm up, and rubbed her thumb once over the crescent marks my nails had left there. Better, she said. The contact was brief and devastating. When the gates opened and the house came into view, my stomach dropped. The estate looked unreal at night, all stone and gold and expensive certainty. I had walked through those doors dozens of times as Lucas's safe girlfriend. Tonight, every light seemed brighter and crueler. The car stopped. A footman opened Vivienne's door first. She stepped out, then turned back and offered me her hand. Everyone in the drive could see us. My breath caught. Her eyes met mine. Nina. I put my hand in hers and let her draw me into the light. The effect was immediate. Not loud. Worse. A subtle stutter of silence moving through the entryway as people realized something had shifted and were not yet sure how badly. Vivienne placed one hand at the small of my back and guided me inside. Lucas saw us from across the foyer. His face went white. Helena Vale stood beside him in silver silk, hostess smile frozen in place. Vivienne, she said, and then to me, Nina, I had assumed you would not be joining us. I changed my mind, I said, before fear could close my throat. Lucas recovered enough to step forward. Can we talk privately? No, Vivienne said. He ignored her. Nina, please. You're upset, I understand that, but this… His eyes cut toward his sister. This is unnecessary. A hot, clean line of anger ran through me. I think you lost the right to decide what is necessary for me. Around us, conversations were definitely slowing. Helena's smile thinned. Whatever occurred between you two, this is hardly the place. Actually, Vivienne said, sounding almost pleasant, which I already understood meant danger. It is an excellent place, since everyone here benefits from pretending Lucas is a polished investment instead of a moral vacancy. A donor near the staircase nearly inhaled her own champagne. Vivienne, Helena snapped. No. Vivienne tilted her head. Then perhaps we should discuss the woman he had in his apartment this afternoon while Nina was preparing to attend this dinner on his arm. The whole foyer inhaled. Lucas went rigid. I said I was sorry. No, Vivienne said. You explained. Poorly. He hated when someone used his own language against him. He turned to me, panic breaking through the smoothness. Don't let her manipulate you. She does this. She takes over everything. For one old instinctive second, I wanted to soothe him, to lower the temperature, to make things manageable for everyone. Then I looked at him and saw the truth beneath the panic. He was not ashamed. He was afraid of losing access. No one is manipulating me, I said. You cheated on me. You lied. And now the only thing frightening you is that I'm not collapsing where you left me. The silence that followed was sharp and satisfied. Helena recovered first. That will be enough. What's enough? Vivienne said softly. Is the expectation that Nina should absorb the humiliation while the rest of you discuss optics. Then she looked at me, and all the edges in her face changed. Would you like to stay for dinner? She asked. Or would you like me to take you somewhere with better wine and fewer cowards? The whole room vanished around the question. I could have left. That might have been easier. But her hand was warm at my back, and for the first time in years, I did not feel like someone waiting to be tolerated. I'd like to stay, I said. Lucas looked stunned. Good. Dinner was brutal and glorious. Vivienne seated me at her right hand instead of beside Lucas, shut down Helena's prettily framed questions, and pinned Lucas into silence with a single look whenever he tried to recover ground. I should have been trembling the whole time. Instead, I felt strangely calm. When Helena asked whether I was still joining Lucas for their summer trip to Capri, Vivienne set down her wine glass before I could answer. Nina will not be accompanying Lucas anywhere. I was asking Nina, Helena said through her smile. And I am answering the question you framed for appearances, Lucas muttered. For God's sake. Vivienne turned to him with exquisite boredom. Do sit still, darling. Contrition looks less pathetic when it isn't fidgeting. After dinner, Lucas cornered me near the terrace doors, while guests drifted toward coffee in the drawing room. Nina? I stepped back instinctively, and almost instantly Vivienne appeared at my side. He made a furious sound. This is exactly what I mean. Vivienne slipped one arm lightly around my waist. Then say what you need to say while I'm here. You've had enough privacy. His face twisted. You always wanted what I had. He threw at her. The words hit me like cold water. Vivienne went utterly still. Be careful. But Lucas, rattled and jealous and stupid, pushed harder. You look at something and suddenly it's yours because you can outspend everyone around you or scare them into agreement. You think this makes you noble? You just want control. I expected her to answer. Instead, I heard my own voice. You do not get to talk about me like I'm an object your family misplaced. Both of them looked at me. I stepped out from under the shelter of Vivienne's arm, not away from her, but into my own space. I was with you because I loved you, I said to Lucas, and I'm standing here because I chose to. Those are not the same thing. He stared at me, truly startled in a way I had never managed to make him before. You can't mean that. With her? I asked softly. You're right. I didn't mean it a week ago. I do now. The panic in his face deepened. You don't even know what she is. I looked at him for one long second. I know what you are, I said. The contrast helps. He grabbed my wrist then, not hard, but desperate. Vivienne moved so fast it made my breath catch. 1 second his hand was on me, the next she had him by the collar against the wall, voice so low I barely heard it. Touch her again without permission, she said, and you will find out which parts of me this family has always been right to fear. He froze. She released him, smoothed one cuff as if nothing had happened, and turned back to me with a face transformed. Come, she said softly. On the terrace, the air smelled of wet roses. My pulse had not settled. You didn't need to do that, I said. He put his hands on you. It was my wrist. Her eyes cut to mine. Do not minimize what frightened you just because you survived it. That tenderness buried inside anger undid me. I turned toward her fully then. Wind moved a loose strand of hair across her cheek. She looked less untouchable out there, more like a woman exhausting herself, trying not to let wanting become recklessness. Why me? I asked. She held my gaze. Do you truly not know? No. The word came out almost ashamed. I know why Lucas liked me. I don't know why you do. Something changed in her face. Because you are gentle without being weak, she said. Because you enter rooms and make people feel less alone without even noticing you're doing it. Because every time he interrupted you, I wanted to drag him into the hall and ask what kind of idiot mistakes quiet radiance for something ordinary. Her eyes dropped briefly to my mouth. Because you deserve to be looked at with reverence, and he looked at you like he had already gotten used to being lucky. The air between us went thin. That is a very intense answer. Yes. She reached up and drew my coat more firmly around my shoulders, fingers brushing the side of my throat. If I say something else now, I need you to understand that I will not take it back later to make you more comfortable. My breath caught. All right. Her eyes held mine with terrifying steadiness. If you choose me, I will never let anyone make you feel disposable again. I had not known words could land like that. Not like flirtation, like a vow. I just got my heart broken, I whispered, I know. I don't know what this is. I do. That seems unfair. Fairness, she said softly, would have been my brother loving you properly the first time. We left soon after. In the car, she was silent for 10 minutes before finally saying, I should not have said so much. I looked at her. Why? Because you are still hurting, and I do not want my honesty to feel like pressure. I stared at her profile in the dim car light. I'm glad you said it. That changed something. Back at her apartment, she took my coat from my shoulders in the entryway. Her fingers brushed the back of my neck. Heat rolled through me so quickly it almost felt like fear. You were brave tonight, she said. I nearly threw up in your car. And yet you remained magnificent. I laughed, then covered my face because the tenderness of the evening had suddenly become unbearable. She lowered my hands gently with both of hers. Look at me. I did. Tell me to stop, she said, voice low. And I will. Every rational thought in my body fled. Her hands rose to cup my face, slowly enough for refusal. She leaned in until her forehead rested against mine. I could feel her breath. Her control. The exact point where control was about to become hunger. If you do not, she whispered, rougher now, I am going to kiss you like I have been starving quietly for months. A tremor moved through me. That is not a normal thing to say, I whispered back. No, she murmured. It is a true one. I opened my eyes. She was right there, dark gaze gone, almost black, red mouth close enough to ruin me. Kiss me, I said. The sound that left her was soft and wrecked. Then she did. The first kiss was not frantic. It was careful in the way something dangerous is careful when it matters too much. She touched my mouth once, slowly, like she was learning the shape of permission. Then again, deeper, her hand sliding into my hair while the other settled at my waist. The whole world narrowed to warmth, breath, and the quiet violence of being wanted by someone who had spent months pretending she could survive not touching me. I made a helpless sound against her mouth. She answered it by drawing me closer, then pulled back with visible effort. We are done for tonight, she said hoarsely. I stared at her, dizzy. That seems unfair. She laughed softly against my lips. You have no idea how unfair I am trying not to be. The next week blurred into a rhythm I had never expected to want. One night in her apartment became several. She made tea the way I liked it, blocked Lucas after his 18th message, and asked in that calm, terrible voice, "Do you want me to handle it?" whenever something upset me. What should have frightened me was how possessive she could be. What saved it was that she stopped when I asked. Every time, the difference mattered. One stormy night, I found her standing in the dark living room with a whiskey glass in one hand and the city glowing beneath the windows. Her shoulders looked wrong somehow, held too tightly. What happened? I asked. Without turning, she said, My father wants to know whether I'm finished playing with you. The cruelty of it hit both of us. I stepped closer. What did you tell him? That if he said your name in that tone again, I would remove his access to 3 of his favorite board members before breakfast. Some of the tension left her mouth. You really should not encourage me. Too late. Were you always like this? I asked. This intense? A rough breath of amusement left her. No, I had to practice. I went to stand beside her. Why? She stared out at the city for a long moment. I was engaged once. I blinked. What? It lasted 4 months. Her smile was thin. Excellent family, excellent education. Very skilled at admiring me in public and resenting me in private. What did he do? He tried to teach me softness by humiliating me when he thought I wouldn't cause a scene. Her gaze finally shifted to mine. He was mistaken. My chest ached for her. What happened? I ended it in the middle of a board dinner and took half his investors with me. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Her mouth curved. The point, Nina, is that I know exactly what it feels like to be valued as long as your full personhood remains convenient. That's why you protect people like this, I said. Only people I care about. My pulse moved strangely. That sounds selective. It is. The first real fight came because of a folder. A woman from Vale Corporate Security brought it to her office one evening just before closing. I was there answering emails and pretending I had not started considering her apartment home. The security woman looked startled to find me in the room, then handed the folder to Vivienne with visible caution. We intercepted the photographer. Nothing got published, she said. My stomach dropped. After she left, I looked at the closed folder on the desk. What is that? Vivienne met my eyes. Screenshots, hotel logs, evidence that Lucas has been cheating for months. Cold moved through me. And the photographer? He was tipped off before the family dinner. Her expression didn't change. I handled it. How? I bought the blog. I stared at her. You bought the blog. It was faster than negotiating. I should have felt grateful. Instead, hurt rose first, sharp and immediate. You knew. I suspected. Then I knew. And you still didn't tell me. Her jaw set. I told you why. You do not get to decide what version of the truth I can survive. The words landed hard. She flinched almost invisibly. I stepped back from the desk. What else have you handled without telling me? She did not answer. That was answer enough. My throat tightened. This doesn't feel like protection right now. It feels like control dressed beautifully. Her eyes closed for half a second. When they opened again, there was no defensiveness in them, only something much harder to fight. Regret. That is fair, she said quietly. I stared at her. I had been ready for anger. You should be furious with me, she continued. I am possessive, Nina. I know that. I also know that good intentions do not excuse making choices about your life without your consent. The clean honesty of it shook me. Why didn't you tell me once we started whatever this is? Because for the first time in weeks, you were sleeping, she said, and I did not want to hand you another blade. That still wasn't your decision. No, her voice dropped lower. It wasn't. Then she said, more quietly than I had ever heard from her, I am still learning how not to treat loving someone like emergency management. The air left my lungs. Neither of us moved. She realized what she had said and did not take it back. I need one night at my own apartment, I whispered. Pain flashed across her face, brief and naked. All right. You're not going to argue? Her laugh was soft and wrecked. Every instinct I have is arguing, but you asked for space, not disappearance. She walked me to my car herself, tucked my hair behind my ear, and made herself step back. I don't know what to do, I admitted. I know. Go think. Lucas was waiting in my lobby the next morning. He looked terrible. Expensive coat, no sleep, panic wearing his face badly. I should have walked past him. Instead, I agreed to talk at the Courtyard Cafe across the street because daylight and public witnesses made the whole thing feel less suffocating. He wrapped both hands around his untouched coffee. I made a mistake. You made a pattern. He winced. Vivienne told you. Evidence did. He leaned forward. She doesn't love normally. She obsesses. She takes over. She'll make your whole life about her. A week earlier, that might have frightened me into retreat. Now I heard only jealousy. She asked for permission at every door you kicked open without even seeing it, I said. He went silent. I looked at him then and finally understood exactly what I was done with. Not just cheating, shrinking, explaining away, offering softness to people who treated it as renewable. You don't want me back because you love me, I said. You want me back because for the first time in your life, Something you counted on developed a door. His expression cracked. That's not fair. No, I said. Fair would have been you being faithful. He swallowed hard. So that's it? You're just hers now? I was not stolen, I said. I left. There's a difference. I found Vivienne in the library that evening. Glasses on, sleeves rolled, the look on her face telling me she had spent every hour since I left trying not to come after me. She rose the second I entered. You're back. Not a question. A relief she had not yet disguised. I saw Lucas. Her expression cooled. Did he upset you? Yes. The answer made something dangerous stir in her. I crossed the room before it could finish waking. He said you would consume my life, I told her. Her jaw tightened once. And I stopped directly in front of her desk. And I told him there is a difference between being consumed and being cherished so thoroughly it scares me. She went absolutely still. Nina. Let me finish. My hands were shaking, but I kept going. What you did with that evidence was wrong. I needed you to hear me say that. But what you feel for me has never felt casual. Overwhelming, yes. Frightening sometimes, yes. But never casual. Never disposable. I took a breath. I spent years being loved like I was useful. You love me like I am singular. That is terrifying. It is also the first time in my life I have understood why people write songs about being chosen. Something broke open in her face then, small and devastating. I don't know how to be less intense, she said. I'm not asking you to be less. I stepped closer. I'm asking you to let me stand inside it willingly. She came around the desk in 2 long steps and stopped just before touching me. Do you understand what you're saying? Yes. Say it again. I smiled despite the tremor in my voice. I'm choosing you. For the first time since I had known her, she looked briefly unguarded, not powerful, not composed, just stunned. Last chance to reconsider, she said. That's very generous for a Yandere. She blinked, then laughed. A real laugh. Low and startled and beautiful enough to make my knees weak. You are impossible. And yet here you are. Her hands came to my waist, warm, steady, careful. If you choose me now, I will be jealous. I will want too much. I will occasionally frighten people who deserve it. I will also listen when you say no, step back when you need air, and spend the rest of my life making sure nobody mistakes your softness for permission to hurt you again. My eyes burned. That sounds intense. It is. I touched her face. Good. I'm tired of being loved politely. She kissed me before I could say anything else. This kiss was different from the first. Less restraint, less fear, more truth. Her mouth moved over mine like she had finally been told she could stop pretending hunger was a virtue. One of her hands slid up into my hair. The other held my back with a possessive tenderness that made my whole body lean into her before I could think better of it. When she finally pulled away, her forehead rested against mine and both of us were breathing too hard. I love you, she said. There are moments when life splits cleanly into before and after. I had thought the split would be finding Lucas with another woman. It wasn't. That was only the break. The real dividing line was hearing a woman who frightened half the city say those words to me like they were both surrender and promise. I smiled, helpless and full. I whispered, I started falling for you the first time you asked me if I preferred red or white wine at your mother's dinner and looked at me like my answer mattered. Her eyes softened in a way that still felt private, even now. It did. I laughed through the sting in my eyes. Then yes, Vivienne, I love you too. A month later, I was wearing her coat at sunrise. We stood on the balcony outside her apartment while the city slowly turned from gray to gold. Vivienne stood behind me, one arm around my waist, warm from sleep and quiet in a way almost nobody else ever got to see. Cold? She murmured. A little. She tightened the coat around me. Better? Yes. I looked down at her hand over my stomach, then out at the skyline waking under a pale pink sky. A few weeks earlier, I had stood in the rain outside Lucas's apartment, feeling like something abandoned, like the safe girlfriend, the understanding one, the woman who would absorb anything if it meant not being left. Now I knew what it felt like to be looked at as if I were not a convenience or a habit. Chosen, protected, wanted enough to remake the architecture of my life, and cared for enough that the wanting had never become a cage. I turned in her arms. Morning light caught in her dark eyes. For all the fear she inspired in everyone else, she looked at me with a devotion so naked it still stole my breath. "What?" she asked. I smiled. I was just thinking that losing him might be the kindest thing that ever happened to me. Her thumb brushed my lower lip. "I should have taken you away sooner." I laughed. That is a very alarming thing to say at sunrise. "It remains true." "Good," I said, rising onto my toes to kiss her once, slow and easy. "I like alarming." The smile that touched her mouth then was rare enough to feel like being entrusted with something sharp and precious. The sun broke fully over the city, painting the windows gold. Wrapped in her coat, held by a woman the city feared and I had chosen anyway, I no longer felt like someone's discarded girlfriend. I felt like the beloved thing a terrifying woman had finally dared to claim. And the most beautiful truth of all was that I had claimed her too.